This day in sports history. This episode is brought to you by Stirling Roastery. For several months you've heard me talking about the great products and scents offered by the Stirling Soap Company. And while there may not seem to be any correlation between soap and coffee, what is similar is the same care and attention to detail in delivering great products to their customers. Stirling Roastery will ship great-tasting beans or ground coffee, for whatever coffee-making process you prefer, right to your door. I gave their breakfast blend a try recently, and I can tell you, it was a great way to get my day kick-started with this smooth, medium blend. And just like their soaps, they have a variety to choose from. Give Stirling Roastery a try at stirlingsoap.com. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books, and with you being a sports fan just like me, here's 2 suggestions for your next great sports read. If you love basketball, then you need to add Dave Zarum's book, NBA 75, The Definitive History. Uncover untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. From the league's humble beginnings to its modern glory, it is a courtside seat to 75 years of NBA history. And if you're a golf fanatic, then you gotta check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget. I've used it as a reference in this podcast over the past year for lots of stories that I've done, and I can tell you from experiencing it, this is a great book. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. It's the closest you'll ever get to walking the fairways with the greatest to ever play the game. Grab your copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available from Firefly, wherever you get your books. It's July 12th, and on this day in 1979, it was a promotional night that went a good bit sideways and still lives in infamy. Chicago's Comiskey Park turned into a true disco inferno on this night in '79. As hard as it is to believe, there were a lot of people who hated disco back in the 70s. Well, one of those guys was Steve Dahl, who was a DJ at Chicago's WLUP The Loop in the late 70s.
Disco sucks! Disco sucks! Disco sucks!
Well, that's Steve as he was getting ready to light the fuse on this promotion. It is understandable how his distaste for disco began. He lost his job at another radio station because of a change in format from rock to disco. There were a lot of radio stations that made that switch during the decade. Enter the Southsiders, the Chicago White Sox, owned at this point by Bill Veeck, a man known for stepping outside the constrictive box a bit and mixing things up. He had a lot of great ideas during his time in baseball, such as the exploding scoreboard. He was the innovator around Harry Carey singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" during the 7th inning stretch. When Veeck had been in Cleveland, he brought Larry Doby in as the first black player in the American League, and then he hired him later as the second black manager in baseball in Chicago. But he also had a misfire with a promotion or two, and his biggest promotional fiasco happened on this night in '79, and it was hatched in the early part of that season. Veeck, along with his son Mike, who was the Sox promotional director, and DJ Steve Dahl got together and formulated a plan to bring people to the ballpark and promote Dahl's station 97.9 The Loop in the process. Disco Demolition Night was born. Bring a disco record to the ballpark and get in for 98 cents. The promotion was set for between games of this twilight doubleheader with the Detroit Tigers on the 12th, which was a Thursday. And Thursday games were not really big draws, so they figured if they could triple a typical Thursday crowd, maybe they could get 30,000 to Comiskey. Well, that would still leave them some room in the 50,000-seat capacity stadium, but it would be a great night, even with deeply discounted tickets. Dahl, fearing that nobody was going to show up, pumped up the event for weeks in advance. Mike Veeck hired security to handle a crowd of about 35,000. Now that should have given him a little extra just in case anything got out of control. Well, the crowd coming to the ballpark was a lot more than anticipated, and they stuffed and overstuffed the big box with disco records. After a while, the boxes wouldn't hold anymore, so people just carried them inside with them. Down on the field, Game 1 was going on. Fans who still had records in their hands started throwing them and other things on the field at the players, lighters, lit firecrackers. The game had to be paused several times during the night. Well, Detroit outfielder Ron LaFleur began to fear for his safety in that first game.
Without a doubt, it was the worst conditions I've ever played in. You know, I was in Detroit opening day, and they threw about 5 bottles at me, but they were throwing golf balls out there. On one play that I made in left center field, I caught the ball, and golf ball went right between my legs as the ball was going into my glove. And I looked down there, it was a golf ball. I thought it was a piece of paper or something. Then there was a few bottles thrown out there, and then records was zooming by everywhere. I mean, record came by my head, one stuck right back behind my foot.
Meanwhile, more and more people were coming through the gates, though the official attendance that night is listed as 47,795. There were many more than that, with some believing as many as 70,000 people packed inside the park. The gates were ordered closed, and people who'd bought tickets were not allowed in. Some started jumping gates and turnstiles. Well, at that point, Mike Veeck sent most of the security that he had hired back to the gates to handle that situation. Game 1 came to an end with Detroit winning 4-1. Time now for the promotional appearance by Dahl and other 97.9 The Loop staff, and to blow up this huge box of records. The crowd went wild as this big box was pulled to a spot in center field.
This is now officially the world's largest anti-disco rally.
So at 8:40, the fuse was lit and the box exploded several times, sending shards of records everywhere. The explosion caused a crater in the field. Dahl, satisfied that his job was done, hopped in his Disco Sucks Army Jeep, did a lap around the field, and then he left. And that's when things really started to go sideways. As White Sox pitcher Ken Kravick started to throw warm-up pitches on the mound in preparation for Game 2, fans started pouring onto the field, and then a fire started blazing in center field. Now, most of the security again was at the gates dealing with that situation, and that left the field mostly unguarded. More fans started pouring over the wall. More fires were started, not only on the field but in the stands. Fans were shimmying down the foul pole. Players who'd been out getting some fielding practice or maybe getting some late cuts in the batting cage fled to the dressing room and barricaded themselves inside. The batting cage was actually destroyed. Fights broke out. The bases were stolen. Chaos reigned. Bill Veeck pleaded with folks to return to their seats.
This is Bill Veeck. Please clear the park, or we'll have to call up the game and close the park.
Harry Carey was doing radio for the White Sox then, and he got on the PA to try to disperse the crowd. That did not work any better. So he tried singing "Take Me Out to the Ballpark." That also had zero impact, and that kind of gets to the biggest problem with this promotion. It did not bring White Sox fans to the ballpark, or really even fans of baseball in general to Comiskey. Instead, it brought people who did not give a hoot about baseball or sports at all. Jimmy Pearsall also did broadcast work with the White Sox, and he could not stand what he was seeing.
Pearsall back in the ballpark, and I'm sure glad, and I hope they don't let you people see what's going on here at Comiskey Park. One of the saddest sights I've ever seen in a ballpark in my life. This garbage of demolishing a record has turned into a fiasco.
Finally, riot police had to be brought in to clear the field, and after 40 minutes of mayhem, it finally was. 39 people were arrested and a few were injured, none seriously. But damage to the field was substantial. Debris was everywhere. The fires may have been extinguished, but burn scars and craters pockmarked the outfield. Shards of glass from broken beer bottles littered everywhere, and when the field was inspected, it was deemed unplayable. Veeck thought that decision was a bit hasty, and the game could have been played. The game was initially postponed, but Detroit Tigers manager Sparky Anderson protested, saying the White Sox should forfeit the game. The next day, Commissioner Fay Vincent agreed, and it's the last time an American League game was forfeited. From a baseball perspective, it was a complete disaster. Even Bill Veeck believed that.
It was a disastrous evening from my standpoint. There are no number of tickets that you could sell that would make it worthwhile.
But from the perspective of a promotional and even a social impact, Disco Demolition Night was a huge success. Disco's popularity waned considerably after this event. Dahl doesn't take full credit for the demise, even though the Bee Gees personally blamed him for Disco's drop-off after this, and while it may not have rung the death knell completely, Disco Demolition Night certainly hastened it to the grave. Now, one of the participants in the riot on this night became well known much later for a completely different reason. The late actor Michael Clarke Duncan, best known for his role in The Green Mile, but was in other movies such as Talladega Nights and Sin City, admitted that he jumped the wall and stormed onto the field.
I ran out there, slid into second and third base, got a Bill Melton bat that somebody stole a week later.
Oh, no.
And my mother told me, do not, she said, that's a history thing. Don't play with that.
Yeah.
Leave it in the house. And we were just like, wow, you got a Bill Melton bat. Everybody left it outside.
Oh, no.
My Bill Melton bat.
And even though the official attendance is listed below 50,000 for this game, falling short of a Comiskey Park record, there are many who believe that it was indeed the largest crowd to ever watch the White Sox play a game at home. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. An American named Richard Halliburton swam the length of the Panama Canal in 1928. Just like ships and smaller watercraft have to pay a fee to use the canal based on their weight, so too did Halliburton. He paid 36 cents. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
The Sports History Network, where legends live on and the past plays loud. Welcome to the place where history's proud.
From gridiron glory to the hardwood stars, from the racetrack heat to Olympic bars, it's the voices, the stories, the moments you missed, told by fans and pros who live for this. Hawkendemic, the Sports History Network, where the past comes alive. Podcasts and blogs that keep the flame high. From Spade to Brady, Ali to the Dome. If it's history and sports, then this is the home. SportsHistoryNetwork.com, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear.